Well, if it isn't your pal, Exotic Mega Blaze, and welcome back to another scary story. And so, as I was scrolling through the stories, as I was scrolling through the stories and sections and stuff, I came across this one. I came across the science fiction stories, and also came across this story which very really caught my attention because of the thumbnail, the picture of the story, and as might as well go ahead and read this new story called Jaunt. Jaunt, and as you can already tell, by the description, is about a family who are traveling to Mars via a teleportation device called the Jaunt. This is just a brief summary of a story written by Stephen King. The original story is generally regarded as one of the scariest horror stories of all. The original story is generally regarded as one of the scariest horror stories of all time. Okay, so yeah, as you can see by the picture, it says the Jaunt. Your body may be your body may be asleep, but your mind stays awake forever. Okay then, and so supposedly the original story of this is regarded as a scare as the one of the scariest stories of all time. Okay, well, let's check it out, shall we? Watch me cook this, and let's see how can this be remotely be so scary to be considered one of the scariest horror stories of all time. But without enough chit chat, just sit back, relax, and watch me cook this. And as you already always know that I'm gonna copy and paste the link of the website Scary for Kids in the description below. But with all but with all that but with all that I'll decide, let's do this. Yeah, just sit back, relax, and watch me cook as I read the story, The Jaunt. So this is The Jaunt. Enjoy. It was the year 2420. It was the year 2424, and the Oates family were taking a trip to Mars. Well, that's okay. Now we're taking okay. So right away, we're taking place in the future. Basically, like, um, yeah, we're going. Yeah, we're going all the way to the future, like 100 years forward, or like 400, like hundreds of years to the future. And yeah, it was the year 2424, and the Oates family were taking a trip to Mars. Mark Oates, his son Ricky, and his wife Marilyn sat side by side, strapped into their seats. People were shuffling down the aisles and putting their luggage into the overhead compartments. The speakers crackled, and a female voice announced, "Last call for John 701 to Mars. All passengers, please take your seats. We will be leaving shortly." The stewardesses went from row to row with gas canisters and masks. They administered the gas to each passenger to knock them out before takeoff. Dad, will you tell me about the jaunt now? Dad, will you tell me about the jaunt now? Ricky asked. You promised. It was Ricky's first jaunt, and he was excited. And also, I should have said this in the beginning. Just what exactly is a jaunt? Well, back in the old days, space travel took a really long time. Mark began. Mark began. Scientists were looking for a way to transport people over long distances. They did a lot of experience involving teleportation, and what they invented was the jaunt. At first, they just teleported small things like a pencil, a pair of scissors, a chocolate bar. They put them through one portal and sent. They put them through one portal, and seconds later they emerged from another portal, safe and sound. Then they started experiencing. Then they started experimenting with mice, but there was a bit of a problem. Mark didn't want to scare his son, so he didn't mention exactly what that problem was. When they put the first mouse through, it emerged on the other side, and it seemed to be okay. But then, but but then it just collapsed and died. They put a second mouse through, and the exact same thing happened. What about the mice, Dad? Ricky asked. What happened to the mice? Well, they performed more experiments, said Mark, glossing over the uncomfortable truth. They sedated the mice and sent them through the portal. When they came out on the other side, they were perfectly fine. When did they start with people, Dad? Rick asked. Well, the first people to go through the jaunt were actually prisoners, Mark continued. They were offered a chance to get out of prison early if they participated. 6 prisoners were selected for the experiment. They were gassed and sent back and forth through the portals again and again. Of course, all 6 of the volunteers came back feeling just fine and dandy. There were other marks. There were other things Mark didn't want to tell his son. He didn't mention the rumors he had heard before. I mean, I mean, sorry. He didn't mention the rumors he had heard about the jaunt. He didn't mention that there had been a seventh prisoner, a man by the name of Rusty Goggins. He was a convicted serial killer who had been sentenced to death for the murders of 4 young women. Oh, okay, hold up, guys. Just got out to fix myself. Okay, okay, now we're good. Let's continue. The scientists wanted to see what would happen if a human being went through the portal without being gassed. They visited Rusty Goggins in prison and offered him a one-time take it or leave it deal. If he agreed to take the jaunt while wide awake, he would get out of jail and be given a complete pardon. The serial killer agreed. They brought him to the lab under armed guard. The scientists had their equipment all set up. Rusty Goggins stepped through the portal and disappeared. When he reappeared on the other side, he was still alive, but something had gone drastically wrong. When he came shuffling out of the portal, he was horribly aged and completely insane. All he was able to say was, "It's eternity. It's eternity in he. It's eternity in there," before he suddenly dropped dead of a massive heart attack. So, how does the jaunt work? Ricky wanted to know. What happens when you're inside? What happens when you're inside? Well, Mark said slowly, even now no one really knows, but all the experiments seem to indicate that while the jaunt only takes a few seconds physically, it takes a much longer time mentally. Ricky was looking at his father thoughtfully. That's why we get knocked out before we go through? He asked. Yes, Mark said. That's why. Something was dawning in Ricky's eyes. It isn't it isn't just teleportation, is it, Dad? He said. It's something more. In a way, Mark said. Maybe we can't even understand or conceive what it might be. Who knows how long it takes and all that time spent alone with your own thoughts. Just then, the stewardess finally reached their row, and Mark didn't get a chance to finish what he was saying. Are you ready? The stewardess asked with a smile. Mark nodded, and she placed the mask over his face. He breathed in the gas, and when everything went black. Minutes later, when they had reached their destination. Mark was awoken by the shrill screams of his wife. He opened his eyes and looked around, and his eyes adjusted. Other people began to shout, and there were more screams. He turned and looked at the seat beside him, where Ricky had been sitting. There was now a wrinkled and wizened old thing with white hair, wide bulging eyes. It was shaking and writhing with a kind of horrid, obscene glee, and its gnarled hands clawed at the air. "It's longer than you think, Dad," it cackled insanely. "It's longer than you think. I held my breath when they gave me the gas. I wanted to see what happened. It's longer than you think." The thing began screeching and screaming as the stewardesses pulled it away, but Mark didn't hear it because he was already screaming himself. Oh my. Oh my. Well, that was pretty scary. Well, that was pretty scary. So basically, the jaunt is that is basically an experiment where scientists will shoot gas, will like spray, will spread grass, spread. Yeah, it's basically an experiment where scientists will test you and take you to the jaunt where they'll like well that where they'll place a gas mask on your face, and then you breathe in the gas and everything went black, and that's where you'll like go inside the jaunt and magically teleport to the other side. I don't know. Okay, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I don't I don't know what I'm basically trying to explain, but yeah. So yeah, this is all. Now I guess I can see why this was considered to be one of the scariest horror stories of all time, and not to mention, and let's not erase the fact that this story does the setting of the story takes place hundreds of years back in all the way to the future in the year 2424. That was pretty interesting and extraordinary. But alright guys, so that was the story, The Jaunt. If you guys enjoyed this video, you guys already know the drill. Subscribe, comment, and let me know what stories you guys want me to read. And but with all that's aside, thank you so much for sticking around to the end. Until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.